she wants. Pick up the phone. I'll pick up the phone. Get what she wants. And get what she wants. I'll pick up the phone. Pick up the phone. I'll pick up the phone. Get what she wants. And get what she wants. Pick up the phone. I'll pick up the phone. Get what she wants. And get what she wants. Pick up the phone. I'll pick up the phone and get what she wants. Oh, it's not far away from us. Not far away from us. There's something better for us. Oh, it's not far away from us. Look for the moon and cross your heart. There's something better for us.
Hello and welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the SMITE Challenger Circuit. I'm Aggro, joined today by Mifflin, as we're going to Europe this week, and we're going to get a chance to see Optimus Gang up against the Lane Surfers. Mifflin, both of these teams have some names that you're probably familiar with if you've been watching the European minor league scene for a little bit.
Yeah, it's so many minor league players. We have Proizen, Aragon, Caspanify, all these guys you should know. But the one standout to me, and it's my bias coming into play again, it's this console boy in Dinosaur coming his way to PC. I'm excited to see him play.
Yeah, I know that he said that he's considering taking a step back pretty soon or something like that on Twitter, so this might be a swan song performance from him. I know they have Predators there as well in that solo lane of that same vein and of that same sort of calling on the console side. So we'll see what sort of performance that team, the Lane Surfers, is going to put up. So we take a look at what the bracket is. As I misspoke earlier, by the way, I said Challenger Circuit. It's Open Circuit. Apologies for that. We've got Challenger Circuit tomorrow, though, so don't worry about that if you're looking forward to it. As we have these two teams going up against one another, both having come off a 3-game victory in the semifinals, taking it all the way to game number 3. Miff, I mean, this is the last week before we see SPL play, and I think that's going to be pretty relevant overall because this is a meta that's going to change once the SPL starts kicking off.
Yeah, everything they've been practicing in the prior weeks might be thrown to the wayside, or it might be completely validated depending on how the SPL players react this weekend. Right now, I'm more worried about this final set of the day, coming off 3-game sets, the both of them. They might be a little bit tired, especially considering playing through an entire bracket is exhausting in general.
Yes, it can be very difficult for sure, and these teams have gotten a little bit accustomed to that at the very least, having played through the SMITE Challenger Circuit qualifiers. Those were typically pretty long days for these teams, so maybe that they can lean on that experience a little bit as they get ready for this final matchup. And that's one that I think, I mean, having experience on both sides, having teams filled with players that have been around for a little bit, I think is going to lend itself to a pretty solid set here. I'd expect a fairly close one between the Lane Surfers and Optimus Gang, but we don't have to wait around too long to find out. We're ready for picks and bans for game number 1, and it's going to lead off with the Lane Surfers in that first pick position. Miff, I think that up until we see SPL play, picks and bans aren't going to change too much. I think the same Camazotz, Yamoja, Persephone, Odin, those are the gods we're going to see prioritized by most teams.
Except the Lane Surfers taking away Freya in that first ban, showing that they respect Kerspanify. Kerspanify showing these prior weeks, every single week, that he's willing to play this Freya, and he's willing to play it at a very high level. You know, Lane Surfers don't want to deal with that, so what's the best way to get rid of it? Just ban it.
Just take it away. Don't have to worry about it at all, as Odin and Persephone taken off the board by Optimus Gang. The Lane Surfers go with 3 respect bans, not necessarily meta bans. These are just gods that you won't find particularly high on the tier list, but maybe Optimus Gang finds some good success with them. But this leaves a lot open. Camazotz is the first that comes to mind for me, but you've got Merlin still open, Thor. I mean, you've got a lot of picks that seem to be on the table now for Optimus Gang after the first pick, Camazotz.
Yeah, leaving up so many gods is going to be a little bit hard for the Lane Surfers. However, I've said it every single week, Camazotz is so oppressive, so much damage output, the sustainability from all of his healing, as well as the ability to flex him into multiple roles. He's just prime first pick potential, especially if you think Optimus Gang is going to pick Yanis and X-Ball and leave all these other priority picks on the table as well.
I mean, Ferricrik has had a really, really good Giannis basically his whole career, so it doesn't surprise me to see him prioritize that sort of selection. Gibelanke also kind of rising up the ranks, and no surprise to me to see the Lane Surfers immediately take the other hunter that everyone is always worried about, and that's Jing Wei. She always seems to be somewhere in the picks and bans, but this character is not. Sun Wukong is not a god that we see a whole lot of usually, but Sibby in that solo lane for Optimus Gang really does love this pick.
I mean, you're not going to lose lane with Sun Wukong. You might not necessarily win it, but you will certainly stalemate your lane opponent. So the Lane Surfers could look towards picking a more aggressive god in their own lane, maybe a hyper carry solo laner who is going to be able to farm up, not have to worry about the Sun Wukong really bullying them out, get something in the late game. Sun Wukong, for my money, is good at one thing. I say it every single week. I'll continue to say it until I stop seeing him. He's good at surviving. Bird form, awesome. You're going to get out of that situation, use your ultimates, just heal up in the sky for a second, then jump away. Awesome. I mean, you're landing with 200 damage, and bird form doesn't do anything. I'm not a huge fan of this.
But you're
pick.
alive, though. But
You are alive.
Though.
You're certainly living.
Say what you will, but he is alive. That's kind of the name of the game for Sun Wukong. As Kali gets locked in for Optimus Gang. Kali has really been all over the place in the open circuit, in the challenger circuit as of late. We'll see if that trend continues this weekend, as Kumbhakarna and Jormungandr round out the draft here for the Lane Surfer. So it looks like Camazotz will be jungle, with Yorm going into that solo lane. But I love the Kumbhakarna up against a Kali. I think it's a really good matchup for Kumba, but Xing Chen 10th pick is impressive for Optimus Gang. That is not a god that gets to go to 10th pick very often.
Doesn't often even make it through that first phase of bans, but instead finding its way there. And that also opens up the door for a flex pick from Optimus Gang. Sun Wukong could go towards that support role, send Jing Shen into the solo lane. That could happen, have that aggression out of the duo.
Looks like they will keep that Xing Chen in the support role though this time around, because this is kind of where you'd expect it to go the majority of the time, especially with Sibi there on the Wukong anyways, as we get ready for game number 1. Dinosaur piloting that Kumba Karna, and as I said, I feel like this is a pick in Kumba that I just never want to see on the enemy team, because he does everything. He peels so well, he initiates well, and he's so difficult to kill because of the passive and his mobility.
He's annoying, that's for sure. I mean, even if you do put him down to the ground, he's going to have that passive to get him back up. You have to land, what is it, 9 more auto attacks, or 5 rather, when he's down.
Yeah,
that's
it
no
scales
fun.
his level, but it's a lot. It's more than you want it to be. It basically all points in the game. You're never like, yes, dude, an easy Kumba passive for me. It always feels like it's at an inconvenient time. And I love it against the Kali in particular, because Kali wants to press that ultimate and then just go, go, go. Kumba Mez is going to stop that, as well as if she wakes up early from that Mez from some damage, she gets attack speed slowed during that time, which is also going to be pretty critical. Or you can just epic uppercut her out of the team fight. Seems like a pretty good selection to let Dinosaur be the counter to Itori, but that means that Dinosaur is going to have to be on point with following this Kali around.
And keeping track of a Kali is never easy. One of the most mobile gods there is. High movement speed as well. It's going to be hard to keep track of them, but you still got that root as well to keep them away. I mean, Kumba Karna's got so many tools to just play this safe. My eyes are on this Discordia and how she's going to be able to deal with the Kali. With a relatively low distance leap in her kit, it's going to be easy for Kali to catch up to her. It's going to be very hard for her to escape. So it really is on Dinosaur to play really well around his mid laner and keep them alive.
And Mr. Stefan's going for a slightly different build this time around. This is on the newest patch, so this is a Mage's, with the buffed Mage's Blessing, now up to 30 magical power. Are you expecting to see this on more mid laners as people start to get accustomed to the new Mage's Blessing?
I think there's a couple realms of thought on the Mage's Blessing, right? You either want to pick it up first just because it's a decent damage output as well as some MP5, so you can sustain up in that lane. But I think you're really only going Mage's Blessing if you're looking for that early kill. If you're looking for some early potential fights, you want to be able to spam your abilities and make use of that MP5. Otherwise, if you build towards your Chronos Pendant or even a Bancroft's Talon, if you just go straight into that item, it's going to level you up a little bit quicker. It's going to make you able to finish it a little bit faster. It's going to power spike you more quickly.
Itori blinking in, looking for Froizen, but Froizen is A-OK at this point. Sippy coming in, but it looks like the lane surfers are willing to keep on going because Itori is out of position. Alka with the first blood, didn't even need to use his blink that time around, and this is the sub for the lane surfers. Alka in the jungle, is my understanding. This is a good start for him on a very, very strong god in Camazotz.
Having your sub in one of the most important roles being jungle is rough. Froizen getting aggressed onto the Sun Wukong, but Alka in there to save the day.
Should be another easy kill for him. Indeed, it will be eventually that Screech comes back up. Great bait by Froizen. Very, very low in the HP department, but having that little helmet on top of that giant snake head, the Imperial Helm, just enough physical protection to keep him alive. And this, if you're Kali on the other side, is not the start you want. You already got first blooded, then your soul laner dies to the jungler all over again. That makes it pretty hard for Itori to keep his jungle safe. I imagine if you're in Alka's shoes, you're looking for invades from here.
Yeah, you're definitely looking to push your lead, especially keeping this Kali down is going to make her a little bit later into that late game. However, if you're Itori, you're expecting not to win the early game. If your name isn't Sinosure, you don't lock Kali and expect to be 4-0 at 4 minutes. So I imagine that he's willing to play with this deficit just a little bit, knowing that once he does get to that 25-minute mark or around there, he is that ticking time bomb that can just win the game for his team.
Yeah, I mean, is Optimus Gang really just conceding the early game here? As you take a look at a lot of their lanes, I mean, Xing Chen brings pretty good pressure, but Gibalanque really does not. Giannis is not a pressure god in the mid lane. Kali, you already highlighted. I mean, I feel like the early game is not great for them, especially if they keep getting picked like this. Caspanify dashed in to that persistent gust, but now might get portals out. Ferrocryk on the way with that through space and time. but it costs 2 ultimates just to keep Caspanify up and healthy. Not the best start so far for Optimus Gang.
I like the decision making from Curve. The second he saw that portal come through, he decided against re-engaging. He knew that it was only 1 auto attack to finish that X-Ball, and I wouldn't have been able to make that decision myself. I'm so greedy. As Dinosaur finds Ferrokrick in mid.
But it's not going to matter. That beads and portal aren't good enough. Mr. Stefan with the kill off the perfect setup from Dinosaur, blinking in and finding that epic uppercut. Discordia Apple, usually notoriously hard to hit on the targets you want it on. In fact, it's getting a buff in that same vein very, very soon. But when you've got epic uppercut set up, you're able to do basically whatever you want with that ability. And Mr. Stefan right on point off the setup.
You might be able to say you can make some epic plays. I'm sorry, don't hate me.
Oh, that's horrendously bad, but as the usual purveyor of horrible jokes, I think I have to support you in this, but I don't feel very good about it, is where I'm going to end up on this one, I'm pretty sure. I guess we can let it slide. But that is your one warning, and we're only 5 minutes into the first game of the set, so let's pace ourselves a little bit here, Miff, is what I would say. As we take a look at where Mr. Stefan is going with this build after that Mage's Blessing start, looks like he's going to prioritize some early pen. This could be an early Divine Ruin, very good against the Kali. Could be early Spear of Desolation, get him to 30% CDR and do a whole lot of damage at the same time. Is there a particular route you'd like to see him go?
I mean, Spear of Deso is one of my favorite items on Mages, full stop, so if he does go that, you won't catch me complaining. Itori onto the red buff, Mr. Stefan contesting it, the ult has to come out.
Mr. Stefan just juking, but good Unstable Vortex for Ferrokrick, gonna make sure that he falls anyways. Mr. Stefan still alive until Aragon finally is able to put him down with that furious roar, but they've already lost Itori, and Aragon very likely to be next. That's 1 for Curve in that engagement, and 1 more for Alka, another 2 for 1 in the lane surfer's favor on a botched red buff invade by Optimus Gang.
I mean, you're already 2,000 gold down before that engagement starts. You have a completely late game-centric comp that we highlighted earlier. I don't know why you would move in towards the enemy red buff there, except for maybe a level of frustration. I mean, once you're 3-1 at that point, you want to get some of that XP and gold back, so you move into the enemy jungle, but to me, that just looks like a mistake. 2 for 0 for the lane surfers, now 5-1 on the board, 2,000 gold up. The whole map is theirs.
And it felt like that was a lot of focus in particular on the Dinosaur. I mean, Itori kind of trips and stumbles into where Mr. Stefan is on the red buff, but it looked like an all-in commit onto the Kumakarna, which really just... There are supports that you can abuse early. Kumba just does not seem like one of them, as Mr. Stefan a little bit late this time, nearly played those geometries perfectly, but just a little bit short on that apple. Kumba is just not one of those gods. I mean, when you see a Geb on the enemy team, you're like, okay, we're going to kill this guy 5 times before he hits the point where we can't kill him anymore. Kumba, I feel like, is never the right god to commit onto.
Yeah, Kumakarna at level 2 now has a dash and likely a root, maybe a mez. I don't want to engage on that ever. Kumakarna at level 6, 7, that's when you really can't engage on him. He's got 3 self-peel tools as well as a dash. I mean, engaging on a Dinosaur at this point is almost the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, I think that you guys, you might remember the old kill the support strategy, or maybe Jelly is the one who would remember that a little bit more. But that was always the game plan against Jelly in particular, because, I mean, he was ready to run it down on any given game.
I mean, that's the Xbox support playstyle in general, so maybe that's why Dinosaur is always looking like that juicy target, having that Xbox history. However, sometimes you just got to know, maybe killing the carry is better. You don't think you'd have to say that out loud, but...
Well, you know, where's the fun in that? Aragon, nice jump to avoid some CC coming from Dinosaur and the gang, but is going to actually end up picking Dinosaur and tossing him into tower. Mr. Stefan ends up feeding Ferrokrick his lunch today. Is Mr. Stefan now in trouble? Is Ikori trying to find him, and through space and time, gonna find Mr. Stefan instead. Alka trying to return it back onto Aragon and has that ultimate, but he might be a little bit too low on mana. Decides to jump in, and now he is too low on mana in order to ult away. Itori finds himself a kill. Ferrokrick's already found one, looking for the second. Dinosaur gonna force the beads, and with that Sleepy Time passive, that's not gonna be enough to save his life, but it might buy him time for Freuze to come in and clean up, but the portal's in time for Ferrokrick to get out of danger. a 3-for-0 in the mid lane. You were worried about Optimus Gang. Fret no longer. They're right back in this game.
That was a perfect storm for Optimus Gang, right? Alka got a little bit over-aggressive, so they were on the back foot, the lane surfers that is, the entire time, trying to move back down the lane towards their own tower, taking damage to their back the entirety of the way. Mr. Stefan uses his dash to escape some damage from Kali, and then Dinosaur tries to follow up with his epic uppercut to peel him out, but misses that, unfortunately. Alka moves back into the enemy tower, trying to pick up an early kill. Couldn't quite find it, loses his own life instead. Dinosaur baited forward, trying to peel out for Alka. I mean, everything that could have gone wrong for the lane servers there absolutely did.
And that's where, at this level in particular, the SMITE Open circuit, you can hope that things like that will happen even when you have a rough early game, as Dinosaur plucked into tower again, and again is going to fall. But here comes Alka around the back, looking for a Tori. That apple is going to detonate before a Tori gets his ultimate back up off cooldown, a 1-for-1 in the mid lane, and it's support for jungler, which I'm sure the lane surfers will always take.
I mean, we've been preaching it, us personally, you and I, Aggro, that supports, you could just die for us. It's not a big deal.
That's right.
Us carries, we are the important people, and you guys can just facilitate our own success. And it seems like that's exactly the lane surfers' mentality, as they keep sending Dinosaur at this tower line to suck up this Xingqian ultimate.
Ferrocrick so low, but this should be an easy kill for Froizen, but he misses him because the X-Ball ultimate finally is able to find him with the pulse. Actually sonarred him out, I believe, in that moment, because he could not see with Caspanify turning on the lights. It nearly saved Ferrocrick's life, but Froizen again rotating towards mid. He's been here an awful lot so far, as has the lane surfers around this red buff. So they try and get it again off this respawn. Aragon in the front trying to zone away, but lane surfers successful on that invade. They get the red buff, and here comes Mr. Stefan. They're looking for the Xingqian yet again. Crippled and no way out. 3 kills now for Mr. Stefan. It's all been fighting around this Discordia curve. Jumps in to try and get a little bit more damage on a Sibi and a Tori. So Optimus Gang now match the grouping coming from the lane surfers, but it might be a little bit too little too late. Through space and time, doesn't find a home, but Froizen now isolated. Has to use that World Serpent ultimate just to escape with Mr. Stefan back in base. This should be a full-on disengage from the lane surfers.
I thought maybe we would see the lane servers trying to beta fight around this gold free. It looks like that's what they're positioning for, but Froizen getting poked out a little bit early and now in a little bit of danger as he gets searched for by the Kali. They ping out his rotation path. Wasn't quite sneaky enough.
Froizen nowhere to go now. A little bit greedy with that World Serpent ultimate usage. Tried to go for the enemy back harpies, and he gets good damage off, but not enough to kill it Tori, though it does create enough space for Alka to come in and get a successful speed buff invade. No Gold Fury pull, though, with the lane surfers a little bit too weak on that left-hand side. You mentioned that you might not be winning lane as Wukong a whole lot. I'm not sure that Sibi has really been that close in this lane. He's going to get first tower, but it's just because Froizen has been rotating mid so often. A big net worth lead for Froizen so far as well. I mean, he's really had a pretty big impact on this game.
Anytime he rotates in these fights, something good happens for the lane surfers. I imagine they look to continue to play around him, especially considering he can get these free rotations, because if he leaves lane, usually the solo laner has to be worried about his solo lane counterpart dealing equally, if not more damage. But when you're Jormungandr into Sun Wukong, you can go anywhere and know that you're going to be more impactful in a fight than he will be.
Especially with these early bridge items that Froizen has gone for. 2 very cheap, efficient items in Jade Emperor's Crown and Stone of Binding. And Sibi's matched that to some degree. His items are a little bit more expensive, but still very effective in Runic Shield and Gladiator Shield. But I agree. I feel like Froizen has more opportunity to be impactful so far, but the lane surfers just need to keep Mr. Stefan safe, and maybe Sibi is the answer. Gold Fury pulled and getting low, though. Optimus Gang do know about this. Through space of time comes through, but it's not going to land. Gold Fury secured by Optimus Gang. I don't know if that was Aragon who stole that or Ferrocrick, but I know it goes to the Chaos side, and the lane surfers are mad about it. They're going to surge forward. Ferrocrick on the receiving end of that epic uppercut, but the rest of the lane surfers didn't want to help Dinosaur out too much. Portal in from Ferrocrick, looking for Mr. Stefan. Going to chunk him down with that unstable vortex, but Tori is going to be tasked with chasing him down. Mr. Stefan has his relics available and will use them, but it feels like a bit of a futile effort. Tori going to grab him. Dinosaur falls as well, but Froizen is trying to return something back. World Serpent looks like it's going to be short on the damage department, and it's going to have to be used to retreat, or maybe not. Froizen still looking for Ferrocrick since Alka's on the way, but Portal's still up for Ferrocrick. Dot damage just short. Alka just a little bit short of the damage necessary to kill the enemy mid laner, but looks like we're not done yet. Optimus Gang still wants something on this left-hand side, but Curve's airstrike is going to stop that engagement for the time being. A wild back-and-forth engagement there, Mifflin, but Optimus Gang come out head and shoulders ahead. They get the Fury and a couple kills.
Lane Surfers, it looks like they just don't quite understand what their own plan is. They pull the Gold Fury when Freudian's so far away. The entirety of that time, he's chasing down the fight. He wasn't able to get involved even a little bit. Yes, the Lane Surfers did communicate very well when Through Space and Time was used, and they were able to pull it out of the way, but instead, it opens up for Aragon to steal it with Skyhook. I mean, nothing's looking good after that. Freudian's still not even in the fight yet, so he's still chasing down the entirety of Optimus Gang from behind, unable to get involved as the rest of his team dies. Alka does almost find the kill in mid on Yanis, but the Aegis, unfortunately, was enough to stop it.
Alka now has to use his ultimate just to disengage. Freuzen looking to keep it going a little bit, though. Is great damage onto Akori. That's going to force out his ultimate, and that, in conjunction with the portal, will get Ittori out of danger quickly. Dinosaur still going forward, looking for Ferrocryk potentially, but that's a Giannis. He's out of there. No chance that you're going to be able to catch him. There should be enough map space to earn an attempt at this Pyromancer, but Sibby's close and is going to blink in. Certainly has steal potential. Ferrocryk local as well. Pyromancer reset for the time being. Picked back up by the Lane Surfers. Down it goes. This time the Lane Surfers were able to secure, but boy was it close. Curve picked up. No relics for him, but he's Jing Wei, so should be all right. Aragon might not be quite as lucky as he's under siege from Freuzen. As Dinosaur joins in. Mr. Stefan nowhere to go. Portal's cut off his escape path. Ferrocryk finds his third. Dinosaur will be next. Aragon finds him as Alka trying to chase down this Gibalanke Caspanify. Just a little bit too slippery on it. Sibby finds Alka, and it's all going Optimus Gang's way. Curve gets airstrike up just in time, but Freuzen is left to the Wolves. 12 kills now for Optimus Gang, as this early game was not their call, but the mid game rather is certainly going all their way. Another great fight for the Chaos side, 4-0.
The Lane Surfers are looking so disjointed in these fights. Once Dinosaur moves up to peel someone out, the rest of his team disengages, so he has to leave after using the entirety of his kit, so he gets chased out immediately. Mr. Stefan wasn't quite able to find the damage that they needed. I mean, pulling the Pyromancer there in general is a risky call. They had to use half of each of their kits on the initial just to confirm it, which makes the fight go Optimus Gang's way.
Wow, look at this. Ittori looking for the solo kill, and he's going to get it with ease. Cost some destruction just as a safety measure, but I don't think he's too worried about that. I think they might need to be worried about this Fire Giant, though, as it's down to about a third HP. Dinosaur is here and causing problems. Ittori's already fallen to Alka, and Dinosaur helps the Fire Giant kill Aragon. Now he's looking for Ferrocryk, and he's going to kill him too. Meanwhile, Fire Giant still pulled by Mr. Stefan as Alka and Freuzen start going forward looking for kills. They can't decide if they want to try and keep this objective leash. They decide they cannot. And a counter throw potentially by Optimus Gang. They've lost a couple members now. Only Sibby still standing after that Fire Giant attempt. Alka is in some trouble though. I mean, he's got to use this sustain to his advantage, but plenty of pools to choose from that he can sustain off of. Sibby's got to use that Somersault Cloud. Comes crashing down. Good knock-up coming from Freuzen, but Sibby's got one of his own. Alka still standing, plenty strong. Shoutouts to Kamazat Sustain. Vampire Bats coming up, but they're a little bit wide left. Sibby having cooldowns come back up, but Freuzen going to put him down before he gets a chance to escape. A full-on deicide, but by that time Optimus Gang had respawned a couple members. A cacophony of errors so far, Mifflin, on that right-hand side.
A game of throws, a song of the SOC. I would call this a very seesaw set in that anytime one team gets a lead, they'll stick around and take the next fight. I guess they're looking to buy these 3,000, maybe 4,000 gold items on their backs because they're not willing to spend any gold that they get off these leads, and gold in the pocket makes not for a lead. Dinosaur blinking in onto Ittori, might be able to find it, but the ult comes out from Kali. Death immune now. Not going to be easy.
Here comes Aragon, though. Doesn't find Dinosaur. That's who we really wanted. Through space and time splits the uprights between the carries. And Dinosaur splits that unstable vortex, but Ferrocryk going to find him with the portal. Good attempt there by the Kumakarna, but ultimately unable to get it away. But here comes Freuzen. Looks like the Lane Surfers aren't done. They keep on going, as you mentioned. Freuzen, Curve, and Mr. Stefan on this left-hand side. Wonder if they're who is it? The Energizer Buddy or Duracell? Who keeps going and going and going? Because that's what these team fights have been. No matter which team feels like they've got an advantage, they have no intention of backing away at any point.
I mean, now 4 members from Optimus Gang gooped around this Gold Fury. Only 2 members of the lane surfers in mid. Jingwei spots it out, but it won't be quite easy enough as that. It's got a huge number deficit here. The Gold Fury should go the way of Optimus Gang. Jormungandr with the ult.
Alka has to use his as well because he's in a little bit of danger. Sibby should be able to chase this down fairly easily. Alka can't get out of combat in order to blink, and Sibby didn't use the ultimate so right away at least, so he can't use it to chase down. He will use it to buy himself a second life bar. Gold Fury still getting lower, and Optimus Gang finally able to secure it as Sibby goes in, looking for some damage on the curve. Still has his ult, his 72 transformations, but Dinosaur gonna interrupt that cleanly and set up curve for the double kill. Optimus Gang get the Fury, but they lose 2 members. Not a whole lot I feel like the lane surfers might be able to do unless Caspanify sticks around a little bit too long. Beads used with that Mez in place, and now Dinosaur's going to find an easy route. Caspanify just trying to trade it out, uses the Aegis, but it's a futile effort. Another kill for Curve, 3 in a row, and they've all been in this team fight. This is going to be a continued siege on this left-hand side.
Initially, after that team fight around the Gold Free, I'd have liked to see the lane surfers move towards Fire Giant with a 2-in-a-row pick. The only person on the lane surfers who was remotely low health was Jingwei. She could have backed to base and flown in towards Fire. It would have been an easy objective, but off the back of that pick, getting a tier 2 tower, that's so nice. Also, desyncing the kills means that Caspanify is not going to spawn for 20, so you've got a lot of time to get defensive positioning around this Fire Giant or even the Pyromancer. Get your wards out. Once you have that positioning, it's so much easier to just sit there and wait for Optimus Gang to move in towards you, maybe bait a fight around this Pyro, and continue out your pressure. But knowing the lane servers, we might see them just go ahead and start to attack again, and we'll see another dance around this Fire, a game of throws, if you would.
Yeah, I feel like pulling Fire is not what I would expect, but in the way this game has gone, anything is possible at this point. Pyromancer was the call for Alka until he got clapped by Ferrocryk with that Soul Gem proc. That's at about 60% of his HP. Ferrocryk already level 20 on the Giannis, farming as well as you'd expect. Pyromancer goes the way of the lane surfer. Sibby close, though, with that Jingu Bang over the wall. So now if you're on lane surfers, let's say you aren't filled with a murderous rage, you know, you're not seeing red at all times and looking for kills alone. How are you trying to extend this lead at this point? Because 2K at 22 minutes is not a big lead. Certainly not big enough to go to Fire Giant. All the tier 1 towers are down. I feel like these are leads that are hard to extend.
They are certainly. You have to bait a fight in a neutral standing, right? You don't want to take a fight under an enemy tower like you normally would at this point in the game, because usually a team does have a lead. But 2,000 gold as it is, you want to maybe fight around this jungle Fire Giant. But instead of pulling it, rather, you can't really have that defensive positioning if you're pulling.
Alka already down to about half HP. Both Atori and Sibby behind, but immediately poked out enough where Sibby has to use that Somersault Cloud. He's going to use it to escape stage left. Look at where Atori is. He's still lurking on these back harpies. Alka was looking for a little bit of sustain and instead finds very little. Dinosaur blink in the epic uppercut. Atori never even got the ultimate off. Bursted too quickly, and the lane surfers get a critical pick onto the enemy Kali late in the game. That is huge. They also got Caspanify's ultimate. Now, this Fire Giant pool seems a lot more reasonable. Still not guaranteed. Alka gonna look to zone a little bit with some damage. Dinosaur peels off the Fire Giant. As the lane surfers realize they can't really afford to try and contest against Optimus Gang, even with the 5v4. Froisen's been isolated, and he has to use the Thorns just as a get off me tool. No teleport for him, so if he backs, he's backing until he wiggles his way back into the Fire Giant pit, and it looks like that is the call. So the lane surfers get a critical pick off, but nothing really for it.
When you are trying to bait a fight around Fire Giant, you can't chase enemies past that initial Pyromancer pit. If you chase them towards the middle lane, they know for a fact that A, Fire Giant isn't pulled, so there's no threat of it going down anytime soon, so they can only extend it out. We saw that the second Optimus Gang saw the lane surfers weren't actually going for the objective, they immediately start backing up. That means that they've mitigated the loss, they're not going to lose Fire Giant, they've bought enough time for their teammate to be alive. If you're in the lane surfer situation, you have to go for the pull. You have to force them to move in towards you and then immediately jump onto the enemy once they're in your range. Alka maybe should have stayed out of combat, found the blink onto Janice, something like that. But with Freusian, rather, forcing out the fight on the top right-hand side of the map, getting zoned 2 enemies off, that's 2 enemies that aren't going to engage on your team, so that removes kill potential on them. And the rest of the lane surfers, 4 members chase out 2 members in mid. No threat put onto Fire Giant. It's so hard to find a fight that way.
Freuzen is playing with fire a little bit here. I mean, some very aggressive positioning for him. So he's going to try and sneak past Atori, but Atori playing linebacker well, not letting him pass. Freuzen is going to need to ult here, no doubt about that. A bit of a waste, feels like. No need to be up that far on the priority side of the map at this point. I don't know, I think if I was lane surfers, you get the pick onto Atori. Fire Giant seems very ambitious to me. How would you have felt about a tier 2 tower siege? I think that's where I would have gone, try and get a tier 2 tower in mid or right.
I would have liked that, especially considering how Freuzen split up the team. Had they moved in towards that tier 2 in mid, that would have 2 members not there, so it would have been a 4v2 as long as Freuzen continued the zone. Just about anything would have been better than what we got, which was nothing, is fair to say, as Dinosaur gets engaged on.
In trouble. Epic Uppercut is up, and he'll send one up, but Sibi not going to let him out. Another frontliner out of position for the lane surfers, and this time Dinosaur pays for it with his life. Alka gonna blink out just in time. That through space of time was hunting, though I don't think it would have hit anyways. This is now a good opportunity, a power play for Optimus Gang. 30 seconds or so until Dinosaur's up. This should be a guaranteed Primal Fury. Lane surfers aren't going to be here to contest. And this is where Primal Fury, I feel like, is just as, if not more impactful than the Oni Fury. Because this is where the Fire Giant fights are going to be close. You're going to be tanking it for a while, potentially. That 7% swing on both damage and that you're doing and damage being dealt to you by the Fire Giant, I think is very, very relevant in games like this.
It absolutely is. Oni Fury more so opens up the map, whereas Primal Fury opens up team fight potential around this Fire Giant. If they don't show up to the Fire Giant, you're burning it quicker and taking less damage. If they do show up, you've already taken less damage, and you're burning it so fast that they have to be worried about the threat of Fire Giant, that the enemy team has to move in. They have to defend it very actively. They can't let you get comfortable around it, because it's going to be way easier for you to confirm as well with that additional damage.
We'll see if Optimus Gang can leverage that additional damage. It also works against Pyromancer, for the record, so maybe they just try and get the smaller objective, but Sibi understands the damage he's taking quickly and has to go up into that somersault cloud. Ferrocrick under siege by Alka on this left-hand side. Through space and time, misses onto Curve, but the Unstable Vortex doesn't. Curve has to use his ultimate as Caspanify chops down Dinosaur on the right-hand side. Freuzen gonna look for Itori, who's already used that ultimate. Alka, in the midst of everybody, is gonna get killed by Caspanify. No dive in by Freuzen, not looking for the suicide onto Itori. A couple low health bars for the Chaos side, but no one seeing black and white right now. 2 for 0 in their favor.
30 seconds left, or 20 rather, on the spawn for Dinosaur. The lane surfers can still potentially defend this, especially considering Discordia is still alive. Her damage output has been absolutely nutty as of late. Optimus Gang also electing not to move immediately in towards this Fire Giant with this numbers deficit, instead going through their own jungle, picking up some buffs. This opens up the map for the lane surfers to maybe steal away Pyromancer, but Sibi blinking in.
Making sure that that doesn't happen. Freuzen gonna tank it up, but no ultimate for him yet, and that makes him a pretty vulnerable World Serpent at this point. Curve just got his dash caught. Through space of time lands, but Aegis was already in place for Curve, and Ferrocrick clocks him with that Unstable Vortex. Freuzen isolated and chopped down on the right-hand side. Atori gonna make quick work of that snake with that chin size. And another 2 kills Optimus Gang's away. Ferrocrick has been all over the place, man, on this Giannis. 6, 3, and 12 for him. 18 of the 20 kills have had Ferrocrick's name on them, and he has been popping this game. He's top of his team in player damage, and Optimus Gang now in a commanding position with Fire Giant around all 5 members.
A full CDR Giannis is so hard to lock down. His mobility is so high, and no one on the side of the lane surfers is making a coordinated effort into finding this Giannis, so he's been able to free cast just about every single fight, and it's showing on the scoreboard.
Ferrocrick, ultimate coming up soon. His right side Phoenix down below half HP. Atori has to use his ultimate, but Mr. Stefan is going to fall to that destruction ult. Dinosaur is going to be next. Caspanify finds his 5th of the game. Freuzen is on the respawn, but quite some time until Mr. Stefan and Dinosaur are back and joining us. But Optimus Gang not going for the end here, Miff. There are a lot of towers still standing. That would have been a pretty tanky Titan. They've got a minion wave coming down this mid Phoenix. Aragon first one in. Blink in by Alka. Gets some damage onto the back line. Ferricrick forced to back it up. Takes a pretty dangerous portal in to the enemy base. In the nook between left side and mid Phoenix. And is waiting for that portal cooldown to come back up. Full CDR will get him right back out as through space of time does not find a home, with Sibi gonna confirm the kill onto Alka. Freuzen in the midst of 3 or 4, but they take some portals out. It's just the front line left over. Kaspanify finds the mid Phoenix, and Optimus Gang trying to decide what to do next.
It looks to me like Alka thinks he's tankier than he actually is. I mean, he's engaging these fights as what is essentially a glass cannon jungler. The only defensive item he has is maybe building into this Robe of Discord, or maybe it's an Urchin. But either way, it's not done yet. You don't have the protections to be engaging 1 versus 4 like that, especially if you're in the middle of all of them. They're all in melee range of you. Couldn't quite find the kill off his own burst. Immediately takes so much damage, even as he blinks in and immediately channels his ultimate, dropped to half health. I mean, gets chased out after that. You have to wait a little bit more when you're this squishy. You have to engage under your own Phoenix.
It's difficult to do, though. I mean, there's just so much dive with this Kali and the Giannis ultimate. I feel like no one has been able to stay safe on the backline. I mean, even Curve on the Jingwei just has not been able to stand and fight so far. Alka, bottom of his team in player damage if you remove the supports, which is usually a pretty fair conversation, though Ittori isn't that far ahead of him, so it's hard to put the blame on Alka's feet, but this feels like the lane surfers have not been able to find the right targets consistently, and that right target now is going to be Ferricrick, because the kid has a 3K power pot in his inventory right now. As if he wasn't hitting hard enough before, we are now in one-shot territory for the Giannis as Optimus Gang begins their left side Phoenix siege.
Imagine complaining about being a mage in Season 7. The damage output is absolutely insane as this Phoenix siege does start.
Sure thing, man. At whatever you say, Freuzen has already been tossed back as he's going to go into that ultimate now. Curve in trouble as Ittori in the backline. Airstrike goes off as Alka does take down Kaspanify. That's a huge pick for Optimus Gang, but Ferricrick is on a killing spree. 3 in a row for him, and he's still fairly healthy, but look at where Alka is behind the entirety of Optimus Gang. Lane Surfers are going to lose their hunter, though. Curve falls to destruction. Now Freuzen is going to be next. Ittori finds himself a double kill. Alka, no ultimate for him, and he's going to get portaled and insta-killed by Ferricrick. Optimus Gang are going to take game 1, 27-17.
An amazing shell from Optimus Gang changes the dynamic of that fight completely. Callie was on her last foot. The ultimate had run off. Jormungandr was channeling his second ability, and it was just about to kill him when the shell comes out, gets her 2, maybe 3 more auto attacks to get the reset on her health. I mean, that fight could have gone completely differently had shell come out even 0.5 seconds later.
That's the support love that we love to give here sometimes on the broadcast. Relic usage, absolutely critical, and that's what ends up happening there for Optimus Gang. A rough early game, though, Mifflin. I mean, they come away with the victory here, but you feel like Lane Surfers gave them a couple opportunities. The 3 for 0 in mid when they're up a decent amount very early in that game. The Gold Fury that gets stolen away. I mean, Lane Surfers really had an opportunity to close this game out, and I just feel like they didn't do it.
Both teams were given ample opportunities to close the game out, and neither one of them took it, except for Optimus Gang right at the end there. I mean, when both squads are playing as sloppy as that was, you can't really fault just the Lane Surfers. It was really a toss-up on who got lucky and decided to finish the game win. Unfortunately, Optimus Gang did draft for that late game, so they were favored towards the end of that match. I mean, Callie, an absolute chainsaw. Giannis, when he's uncontested as he was, we saw that he's able to pop off with the full CDR and the damage output, even electing to go for the Elixir of Power. I mean, that's about as much damage as you could hope for from a mage, especially when no one's really able to find the aggression onto him. I mean, nothing really went the way of Lane Surfers after the 22-minute mark.
Ferricrick was just all over the place, man. I mean, he was getting into these team fights perfectly. His through space and times were cutting off escape routes very, very well, and this is why this pick was really banned from him a lot of last year. Even when Johnny was playing on this team and teams had to ban Ao Kuang, they had to ban Kali, all these late-game hyper carries that Johnny loved. Ferricrick was still getting that Giannis respect banned away from him for a reason, and I think we saw it here in game number 1. I mean, that's exactly where I'm looking for picks and bans for game number 2, but we'll find out in just a little bit if the Lane Surfers can bounce back. Stay with us here on the SMITE Open Circuit. Welcome back, everybody, to the SMITE Open Circuit. Optimus Gang take game one, but it was hard fought, to say the least, as that game was a little bit of a back and forth. I think both of us are hoping for a little bit more cleanliness here in game number two here, Miff.
Yeah, cleanliness only second to godliness. I would like to see just a bit more discipline, rather. I mean, I've been preaching it every single week as we've been watching these more amateurish teams. When you get a lead, you don't have to continue fighting. You can look up at that gold on the top of your screen, and even if it says you're 5k up, if you haven't spent a cent of it, you have no lead, except for XP, which, without the addition of gold, especially in these early game fights as we saw last game, is just about nothing. You know, when you have a lead, you know, use it, and then go in and fight again. You don't have to do it immediately.
Resetting is going to be the name of the game at times, I think, for these teams. But we'll see if that's going to be the case, as we should be getting pretty close to picks and bans now for game number two. I think that the Giannis pickup for Ferrokrick is going to be one that I would look to take away. Freuzen did look really good on that Jormungandr, though. I mean, he was making impact fairly early on in that game. Sibby might want to go with something that can actually match those rotations or make the same level of impact. I mean, Sibby did his job, didn't die a whole lot, was annoying to the back line. But I feel like without Ferrokrick's damage, that would have been a much harder game for Optimus Gang.
I mean, Sibby certainly did do his job. They knew what they were drafting for in the Wukong, which is the survivability, but I would also like to see him pick something more aggressive, something that can get involved early. We saw that he was willing to rotate, but once Wukong rotates into a fight, level 9, level 10, he's not bringing as much as literally any other warrior or even a guardian would have brought. If we see him maybe get on a more involved early, it will be a little bit better, especially considering how much Freuzen was bringing into that Jormungandr. Freya and Yanis banned out by the lane surfers. I mean, no surprises there. You have to respect Kerspanify. You have to respect the Yanis pick from last game. I like the ban so far. It's just a matter of what are they giving up to do this.
I mean, Sobek was the ban they banned instead of Giannis last time. I think that I'm fine giving up Sobek in that slot. Camazotz is the first pick once again for the lane surfers. And again, it feels like this could be a flex. I mean, Alka got off to a great start that game, but really struggled as the game went on.
I mean, when you see Camazotz, you have to build him maybe a little bit more bruisery than we saw. Or if you do go hyper carry, you need to have a better early game and get there a little bit more quickly. Unfortunately, Alka drafted his entire itemization towards the late game in this complete glass cannon build, but he wasn't able to see the level of success that we expect from Camazotz. That could have been off the back of these disjointed fights that we saw from the lane surfers, but unfortunately, it just didn't pan out the way you'd expect. Maybe we'll see him move towards this solo lane, which I think is truly Camazotz's home, but unfortunately, it just hasn't worked just yet.
Well, Kukulkan is the pickup for Ferrokrick this time around, having his mid laner banned away that he played last game. They immediately pick him something high tier in that same slot, which I like quite a bit. Terra and Thor for the lane surfers does tell me that this Thor likely will be jungle, Camazotz solo, Terra support, though really all of those could switch around. Terra may be the least liable to switch because I don't think we'd see Thor support necessarily, but even that is an option at the end of the day. Feel like the lane surfers got rid of some of the flexibility their draft had by picking these picks early, but I don't mind it too much anyways because I think all three are pretty strong.
I would much prefer this Thor in the jungle, and that's not to say that I'm not a huge fan of Thor in the solo lane. The global rotations that he can bring makes it very easy for him to get involved in those mid fights. However, we saw from Alka that maybe he isn't quite as comfortable on this Camazotz. There was a lot of blink-ins that misses his abilities afterward. The Screech wasn't found very often in these late game fights. Maybe he'll be a little bit more comfortable on this Thor. And as I said earlier, I just love the oppression that Camazotz can bring through sustain and damage in the solo lane.
Sibby's going to try and match that with the Achilles this time around. A little bit more sustain of his own and certainly a lot of damage there in that solo lane. I feel like this is going to be a volatile one to watch on that right-hand side, which is always fun. Mr. Stefan gets to go back to the Discordia, and I like this pick. Mr. Stefan, I thought, had a very, very good early game and then was really just on the run the entire late game. I don't think that the Discordia was the problem.
Discordia is certainly not the problem, and all the damage that he found off the follow-up from Kumakarna, the epic uppercut, setting up so much for that apple. The majority of the picks that the lane servers got were off the back of that combo from Kumakarna to Discordia. We'll see how he's able to perform with a Terra setting up instead. Taking a look at Optimus Gang's comp, though, Nemesis filling it out Not a jungler you see very often right now, not much that she's too good at. Her damage output is relatively high. She's able to find this huge removal of defense on these tanky targets. However, I mean, the other junglers just deal so much more pressure. Barring that, Optimus Gang's comp is nasty.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I mean, Athena taunt into Kukulkan ult the first person, then we Athena taunt the next person. We don't have Kukulkan ult, but we've got Nem ult, and Nem ult plus a Zephyr from Kukulkan basically hits you as hard as his Spirit of the Nine wins. I like it quite a bit. It doesn't sound like you're a big Nem fan, though, Mifflin. I'm a little bit surprised. I think Nem, I mean, she did just get a buff, 2 seconds off, removed off the cooldown of Slice and Dice. 2-second cooldown buffs are usually pretty strong. I think that we could see a lot more Nem. I think she's pretty strong.
I like Nem, I truly do. However, I'm a huge fan, especially in Season 7, of junglers that are able to control the pace of the game in the early. I want them able to just completely decimate a lane when they walk into it. They have to be able to instill fear and get the lead for their teams. I like to see the hyper carries out of the other roles. And Nemesis, although she is very potent in the late game, in the early game, she is one of the weaker junglers that you can pick.
You've always been an early game jungler guy. You used to play nothing. You were dirty Ratatosker main. You loved playing Rat to abuse the early game. You wanted to play Guardians jungle so you could fight early. I think that this is just the Mifflin experience is all. Because Spanify actually has to use the beads. He might be dead on this left-hand side. Shell is going to help, and that actually gets him out in this moment. But good aggression by the lane surfers, hitting 2 first.
You don't often see Rom on the front foot like that in lane, but instead he gets it completely because Spanify has to pull up his potions. They lose out on the Shell. They do trade out the Heavenly from the lane surfers, but you have to be worried if you are the lane surfers in this situation because you're so pushed up, because you're so far in that lane that opens you up to ganks from the jungler. Optimus Gang isn't really expecting an early game gank because they do have that Nemesis slotted, so I think they're absolutely comfortable playing under their own tower, but going forward, it's going to be a little bit harder for them to play up.
Sibby already getting bullied pretty heavily on this right-hand side. Worth noting, by the way, that Itori actually starts Boots 1, and that's a start I've really only ever seen on Mercury because he gets power from those boots anyways. Feel like that's a little bit odd. Why would you start just Boots 1 in the jungle?
6% movement speed for 500 gold. I mean, it's hard to justify that stat line on anyone besides Mercury, who does benefit as the passive, as you said. Nemesis might be looking to finish those boots as quickly as possible and then move in towards maybe a stone-cutting sword just to get that attack speed online early. I would prefer to see her move in towards a Crusher or something like that, but Aragon getting aggressed on the long lane loses his life to Dinosaur.
Beautiful play by Dinosaur. 2-man root, 2-man stun, and easy cleanup kill. Assisted by Curve, but Dinosaur still gets it. But he earned it, by my estimation. He did all that damage basically by himself. As Frozen and Alka looking for a potential blue buff invade, but they don't know where Ferrocryk is. Mr. Stefan can't provide the info that he went left jungle. He was coming back from base, I do believe, so that gives up the invade on that right-hand side. But this has been an impressive performance from Dinosaur so far. You said you were looking forward to seeing him play. I thought that his Kubakarna game was pretty good, and now he's doing work on this Terra.
I mean, anyone that's off that old console rival roster are players to look out for. They're all absolutely talented, truly only held back by being on the sticks. Now that they've loosened those shackles and picked up the keyboard and mouse, it's going to be a lot more high-level play out of these guys who've been competing for an absolutely long time, so they know what it's like. They know how to comms. They know how to play around these teams. It's just whether or not they can make that adjustment towards the PC.
Man, Dinosaur's swinging, man. He just did a third of Aragon's HP with his combo. You can see how little damage Mr. Stefan or Alka will have to provide in order to help finish off a kill as long as Dinosaur is in the area. Feels like it's going to be pretty easy for those kills to happen. Feels like Optimus Gang's onus this game on the builds is really going to be in the anti-heal department as Dinosaur tries to set up for Mr. Stefan in the mid lane, but off the mark on that wall. You can see the level of difficulty on the execution much higher on the Terra than it was in the Kumbhakarna last game. But I feel like as long as Optimus Gang stack a lot of anti-heal this game, they should be okay, but they're going to need it against Terra and Camazotz.
I mean, yet again, Optimus Gang did draft for the late game. Athena only going to get better with time as she finally gets some CDR online to find these taunts. I mean, Farrakrick on this Kukulkan going to be able to pop off and defend very well if they do get that early game deficit like they did last game. They can sit behind their towers. The tornadoes make it very hard for any sort of siege to happen, as well as Spirit of the Nine Winds is a fantastic steal tool. A long-range burst ultimate like that is going to make it very risky to pull these Gold Furies or even the Pyromancer as long as he's alive. And as I've been saying this entire time, Nemesis, maybe not that sick in the early game, but once late game rolls around, she's going to be able to 1v1 just about anybody, as well as to get into their backline very easily with a double dash.
If you're Nem in this game, who's your first target that you're trying to 1v1? Who are you dumping that ultimate on?
I'm dumping my ultimate onto Terra, which opens up the team to blow her up, and it maybe removes this huge team fight presence out of her. But once I've ulted the Terra, and I know I have a very strange Nemesis playstyle, I would immediately use that protection to dive as deep as I can into the enemy backline and just completely disrupt them and find as much damage as I can onto maybe Discordia or even the Curve on Rom, who doesn't have that great of an escapability outside of his own ultimate.
Well, needs it right now because he's in trouble on this left-hand side. Good stun coming from Alka, and Caspanify's beads not there in time. Another kill goes the way of the lane surfers. Aragon looks likely to follow. Dinosaur finds his second kill onto the enemy support. A 3-0 lead for the lane surfers feels awfully reminiscent of game number 1.
Game number 1 didn't go quite their way, so I'm sure the lane surfers are looking to push this lead a little bit more than they did last game. Maybe look towards these early objectives and Gold Fury, or maybe steal away these buffs. As Farrakrick getting picked out a little bit, loses the beads.
But ultimate just a little bit wide right from Mr. Steffen. Good idea. I think that would have resulted in a kill with that extra damage coming from Terra ult, but just a little bit off the mark there on that golden apple. Difficult to lock down a Kukulkan, though. I mean, that extra movement speed that he gets from that slither is extensive. I think a lot of people underrate that ability. I think that ability is really strong. For a while, people were calling it the worst ability in the game.
Imagine considering what is at level 1 30% additional movement speed and slow immunity. I mean,
no.
I couldn't
like
downplay
60%.
it ever.
It's like 60%.
Oh.
It's something like
Oh,
that.
that's
I think
sick.
it scales to 80%. I'm going to look it up as we speak. The benefits of the home office, so to speak, with the casting from home. But yeah, movement speed just kind of undervalued in general, right? It is 60% at level 1. It goes 60 to 80, which is pretty good. It turns out it's pretty good. What is the worst ability in the game, you think? I don't think.
What's the worst
gotta
ability in
be
the
like-
game, huh?
I feel like every ability has some sort of use. I really don't think there are that many straight up bad abilities.
I might have to
Wow.
give it to Master's Will, Sun Wukong's second ability. I mean, it is a slow, but it's a tiny circle, and it's just most warriors have more potent abilities.
Dinosaur taunted in. Spirit of the Nine Winds lands, but it's not enough damage to take him down quite yet. Terra too tanky, and is going to be able to get that ultimate off. Curve is able to chop down one, snipe out another. Farrakrick is going to fall. Double kill for Curve on the Rom. And getting the Rom ahead early is exactly what you want to do as the lane surfers. A much better team fight that time around for them. They come away with 2 kills.
They're playing absolutely clean at this point. I've been playing a lot of Rom, as you know. This god really starts to pop off around his 3rd or 4th item, but 2 levels up as Rom means that at no point is Crispinify allowed to auto-trade him. The cripple on his dash auto attack is going to be able to stop Crispinify, maybe even cancel out his own dash X-Balls, that is, because the CC immunity does not start on startup. It starts once he's really off the ground. It's a bad matchup for X-Ball at this point. The auto attack trade is going to be so bad. Rom has one of the best steroids in the game in terms of pure attack speed. It's going to be so difficult, as well as lifesteal now online for Rom. And X-Ball hasn't even started stacking his trans yet, which means the auto trade and sustain is going to go Rom's way as well. That is a nearly lost lane.
I think it's got to be Wukong 1. That's the worst ability in the game. You got me on the Wukong train. I feel like I'd rather have the 2 than the 1. The 1 just doesn't do enough damage for me to be, like, scared of it ever.
Well, the 1 is his only lane clear ability, and the bonus damage to minions. I mean, you gotta
No, you can
value that
max
at
the
least
2.
a little bit.
You can max the 2.
You could max the 2.
Max
Do
the 2 is
you
good.
max the 2?
You can, yeah. It depends on the matchup, what you want to max on Wukong. I'm pretty sure. I don't play a whole lot of solo lane, but I've definitely seen a lot of players max it too. It's a lower cooldown, I believe. So it's
And it does deal more damage to gods.
yeah. Try it out next time you're playing some Wukong. Maybe you'll be on my side on this one. Then Sun Wukong 1 needs a little bit of love. Aragon needs a little bit of love on this left-hand side, but he's going to cancel that dash. Smart. But now he's got to juke out these shots from Curve. Use that tree to his advantage. Curve can't find him. Now he spots him in the distance, but it's too late. He's already run out of time, and the shell was there from Aragon anyways. No shell to save Ferrocrick as he gets picked on the rotation. That fight on the left-hand side. Alka up, looking to finish off the support or the ADC, but Aragon had already backed, and Caspanify too healthy to all in. So instead, the lane surfer is going to turn their attention towards this Gold Fury. Tori ults Alka. Alka's able to have that hammer to get away. This Gold Fury getting low, and this is getting risky. Reset by the lane surfers. Stun onto Aragon. Apple delivered on time. Curve going to get the last hit, which is actually relevant with that blood shield that he got from his Blood Forge. The lane surfers this time, though, not playing with fire. They seem to have made a change from game number 1. I feel like they would have tried to do that in their face in game number 1.
In game number 1, certainly, they would have lost the fight afterward, and then Optimus Gang would have stayed around and then lost the fight after that. No Gold Fury would have happened for 15 minutes. Instead, taking that early lead, picking up a couple kills on the rotation, as well as trading out Nemesis' ult for nothing, get another kill off the back of the Gold Fury bait, and just return to your lanes and farming up. I'm loving what I'm seeing from the lane servers right now. 7-1 is the slash line. 11 minutes into this game, 3,000 gold in favor of the lane surfers. I mean, this is clean Smite.
I am a little bit concerned, though, Mifflin, because half of the lead, at the very least, is all on Curve right now. And it's all basically on this dual lane side. I mean, 1,000 gold for Dinosaur on the lead, 1,500 gold or so for Curve. That's 2,500 of this 3,000 gold is on 2 members. And all the level lead is there as well, because the levels are pretty even everywhere else for the time being. If the lane surfers can continue to play around this dual lane and they stay up, then that's great. But if you get 2 shutdown kills on a Dinosaur and Curve respectively, I feel like Optimus Gang's right back in it.
With great power, or great leads rather, come great responsibility. When you are this far up as a cohesive unit in your duo lane, that means it's your job to start facilitating plays around this Gold Fury and also protecting your life. As you said, the bounty gold as well is going to be so high on these guys. I mean, when you have a huge lead, you can't complain, especially when you're so far ahead. It means you're effectively removing Caspanify or Aragon from these fights because they can't match you in that lane. If you poke them out or even get an early pick with your huge lead, you can immediately move in towards this Gold Fury or even start to rotate towards mid and siege this tier 1 tower. I mean, having your lead concentrated just means that you have one person who's more powerful. A 2,000 gold lead split between 5 people, what is that, about 400 gold per person? That's nothing. But having 1,500 or 1,000 on 2 guys means that they are an entire item up.
Curve is trying to leverage that now as he's pulled the Gold Fury. Low it goes, and a reset comes through. Not knowing exactly where Ferrocrick was. That Spear of the 9 Winds is the ability to match right now. Is Tori in trouble in the mid lane? Froizen gonna get that one, and now Sibby is in trouble. A nice stun, gonna buy him some space, but Ferrocrick already has to use the Aegis. Froizen gonna be able to clean this one up with ease. Double kill for him. Might be trips as he's looking underneath that tier 2 tower, but doesn't have the cooldowns to bring down Aragon. Caspanify and Sibby doing their best to handle this Camazotz, but this is the Camazotz we're used to seeing. This tanky, bruisery Camazotz. Glad Shield and Transcendence the items. He's doing plenty of damage with that trans. Lane surfers earn themselves a Gold Fury.
It's that 2-level lead from Camazotz being level 14 in as many minutes in the game. No one's really able to keep up with him. He's got huge damage output and sustain out of that Glad Shield, as well as the ability to just remove yourself from the playfield with the ultimate. So if anyone does actually get him low, Bat Out of Hell is going to get him out of there scot-free. I mean, he's so oppressive. I love this god, but he does need a little bit less damage. We saw in the patch notes, it's not this patch, but he is getting a slight nerf coming up.
Tori going to try and nerf some of his protections with use of that ultimate. No ultimate quite yet for the Camazotz, and that's an easy kill on this right-hand side. And that's what Nem provides, the I don't want you to live anymore button that is Divine Retribution. Mr. Stefan trying to get away from Sibby. Aegis will save his life from the execute, and Ulka will put up double digits for the lane surfers who at least get something on that right-hand side after Freusen ends up falling.
Alka on the backside, not quite able to move in to defend this tower that's going to fall pretty quickly. Hammer used aggressively, though. Aragon on the chase, but it fizzles.
Left side, Kaspanify gets a tier 1 tower. No one there to defend. Mr. Stefan going to show up now since Curve is on the right-hand side trying to group up for a Pyromancer. Alka going to use that ultimate, but he should be dead to that Whirlwind. A bad decision there with Aragon close enough to punish. Should be Pyromancer anyways for the lane surfers, but after how well they started off last game, I feel like we're just waiting to see if they can keep it clean. And really, I think the same would be going if Optimus Gang were in the lead. I think that even though one team is looking really good right now, I really don't think that you can write this game as over.
Yeah, you can't really trust them. At 5,000 gold, if this were SPL, you're like, wow, things are going bad. But in a game that especially after a game that we saw last match, you can't trust them with this lead. It's really on how well the lane surfers can play around it, maybe look towards this mid tower or towards this fire giant. Right now that Gold Fury and Pyro are dead, it does simplify the game a little bit. There's less decisions to be made on where to move. However, you can't just rest on your laurels at this point, especially considering that the long lane has lost its tier 1 tower both ways. Both hunters are completely exposed. It's going to be so hard to play defensively over there. Junglers should be able to rotate very easily, so I imagine they want to continue this team fight / mid-game rotations phase as long as they can.
Spanify's caught up a little bit as well, so that looks like a gankable lane to me at this point. There are lanes, I'm sure you could attest to this, Mifflin, that you look at it and go, I'm not helping that. Nothing I'm going to do is going to help that situation. In fact, the most likely scenario is that the jungler rotates and they die as well. This setup, tier 1 tower down, Kaspanify has relevant damage now, finishing that Aussie. Erendite done in a rage, actually, for a Tori, which is interesting. I feel like that's a lane that a gank could be potentially successful. Nice double taunt from Aragon. No ultimate, though, from Ferrokrick. There is an ultimate from Mr. Stefan, and great dunk coming from Alka. Kaspanify has to beads and dash away, and Curve is on the case. Third snipe just a little bit wide as Ferrokrick's ultimate just drops to be safe. No, it actually flattens Freusen all the way in the back line. I thought that was just a throwaway ultimate, but Ferrokrick locks one down anyways. Sibby has to get that Defender of Olympus to try and keep him up and healthy enough. But Optimus Gang fighting back a little bit. Freusen didn't see it coming.
Some signs of life from Optimus Gang as they get a pick onto Freusen. Camazot's historically, as I said earlier this game, entirely hard to kill. Instead, though, they trade out 1 kill for their tier 1 tower, and the mid tier 1 is incredibly important for rotating throughout the map. It opens up so much for the lane servers. They can now move in towards these enemy objectives in the red buff or the speed buff a lot more safely, as there's no safe spot for Optimus in the middle. However, it is very late game, 17 minutes in, so maybe they're not too concerned about it at this point. Fire Giant, however, is the next point of interest on the map. Itori at level 14 is a little bit behind the Thor, but that's what you can expect. Thor, a very early game character, and Itori on this Nemesis completely slated towards the late. Erendite is picked up as well, and it's interesting to point out that we're looking at a crit Nemesis right now. 1 stack on the Rage, and I imagine that's a Deathbringer he's working into now. Penetration?
Could be.
Who needs it?
Yeah, who needs it? I mean, your ult is basically penetration, right? And I wouldn't be surprised to see that hidden dagger actually turn out to be Malice. I've been playing a decent amount of Malice Nem recently, and it's actually really, really good to get crit. You get some cooldown reduction as well, and then it's some big damage. I mean, you get some cooldowns back whenever you start critting. I think that item actually makes a lot of sense on Nem, but I'm interested to see where that's going to go because Deathbringer obviously strong as well. Aragon stunned and stunned again, but not a whole lot of damage. Great strike on the left-hand side. Dinosaur going to drop that ultimate. Alka up, and he could be getting a fatty dunk here, but Ferrokrick is a little bit too far away. Is going to be able to escape that one. Spear of the Nine wins, tickles Dinosaur. Not nearly enough damage to bring him down. And this should be enough space earned for lane surfers to go back towards this Oni Fury. Teleport is up, and Sibby going to use it to try and get back in this fight, but it's too late. Lane surfers have already gotten the Oni Fury. And Aragon not able to find that taunt. Freusen now thinking about keeping it going. Could swoop in, but decides to swoop out with that last option. Collapse incoming, though, from Optimus Gang. This is a little bit spooky now. Dinosaur going to try and wall them off. Sibby blinks in, has that Defender of Olympus channeled onto him. Shell from Dinosaur just in case. Freusen lurking on this right-hand side, but Optimus Gang might just try and use their advantage to push down this mid-tier 1. No ultimates up for them, at least for a little bit longer. Tori finds Froizen, gonna put some damage back his way. Alka hops on over the wall to provide assistance, and Optimus Gang decide that they've had enough.
I like the decision-making from Optimus Gang there to try and continue the aggression after the objective. They know, yes, they Lane Surfers did just get the gold free. However, they're a little bit low. They had to use a lot of their abilities to confirm the objective as well as the ultimates beforehand on the fight to force out Optimus Gang. Means that they're not going to have that available in the fight around this tier 1. I like that. Gold in the pocket does not make a lead, so they don't have to be worried about that gold they got from the Oni Fury, but it does fizzle out towards the end there as Itori tries to move in towards Froizen on the right side, but wasn't able to find quite enough damage. You said dealing nice damage, but I saw after the leap over the wall, Froizen was 100% HP, feeling good about himself. At this point, the Lane Surfers can move in towards Fire Giant or Pyro, and they should be able to take a fight anywhere as Mr. Stefan gets aggressed on.
Jukes out that Spear of the 9 Winds. He just took 3 ultimates on cooldown on Optimus Gang's side, Nem, Cuckoo, and Gibalanque, but cost him both his relics and a trip back to base, so certainly not a free use of those ultimates. Pyromancer pulled by Lane Surfers, knowing that Optimus Gang don't have the ults they'd like. A good attempt by Sibby, nearly stole that, but not close enough, and now he's crippled. 3-man taunt from Aragon only delays the inevitable. Froizen finds his 3rd, and Optimus Gang decide, why not? Let's keep it going here on this Fire Giant, but Optimus Gang know about it. Ferricrick drops the Whirlwind, but looks like that's just a zoning tool. Back to the Fire Giant go the Lane Surfers. Mr. Stefan pretty isolated on this left-hand side. No relics for him, and he's standing on a ward, but Aragon feels like he needs to address this Fire Giant first and foremost. Down to below 1/3 HP. Ferricrick has to use the beads. He's going to have to get on the run now as Froizen going to try and chase him down. Curve up into the sky. Shell comes through. Anvil of Dawn as well. Everyone's looking for the Cuckoo, and Alka is going to find him, but he's going to fall in response. Caspainify finds himself an easy double kill. Curve in trouble as well. Tori finds number 7 for Optimus Gang. Dinosaur going to die to Caspainify. That's a triple kill for the Gibalanque. Froizen might be number 4 as this X-Ball has reached his peak, getting towards that late game. Caspainify once it uses the auto attack extender for the Darkest of Nights, but that was pretty ambitious. Great fight though for Optimus Gang. 4 for 1 on that fight, but they don't feel like they can get a whole lot off of it.
We were saying it earlier, we were waiting for the throw and when it was going to happen, and it was around that Fire Giant. The Lane Surfers take that fight a little bit too disjointed. They dive a little bit too deep. Everyone looking for the Kukulkan, as you pointed out earlier. Yeah, you found him, but you left your backs exposed to an X-Ball who's been shooting you the entire time, as well as Itori shredding away your defense and finding the damage as well. It's not easy to just commit fully to one character, especially as they're retreating on the full back foot. He wasn't at any point looking to contest that Fire Giant. He was, Kukulkan rather, just retreating the entirety of the time, putting him in such a good position to set up for his team. And fortunately, it does go that way. Ferricrick didn't find any damage himself, but displaced everyone with that juicy kill.
I say it a lot, man. I mean, if the enemy team wants to kill you as a mid laner, they're going to kill you. But you have to put them out of position in order to do it and get as much damage off as you can. And Ferricrick did just that. That brings this game basically to parity. I mean, 2,000 gold at this point, nothing. Curve's massive lead, gone after Caspainify's triple kill. Now he's level 20. Like Optimus Gang are in a good spot, but no relics on a Ferricrick, and they need to worry about that. Sibby blinks in, Fire Giant getting low. Here comes Ferricrick, his ultimate coming up, and Optimus Gang has already stolen it. They didn't even need the Cuckoo. Sibby in trouble on the run. Froizen gonna try and chase him down, but no, leaves it to Dinosaur to finish him off. Ferricrick gets dunked in one shot by Alka and Froizen. They dive him much more effectively this time, and Tori has to blink away. Fire Giant still on 3 members of Optimus Gang. Taunt by Aragon, sacrificing himself to the wolves so his jungler can live, as all supports should. It's a Fire Giant for Optimus Gang, but the cost is steep. 3 members, tier 2 on the right-hand side, and the Lane Surfers might try and backdoor this Phoenix. No minions here to help them. This is a little bit risky, but these 2 damage dealers from Optimus Gang need to respect this, because if they die, that's game over, so they'll give it up. Right side Phoenix falls in favor of the Lane Surfers.
I mean, it's a back and forth game. The second Optimus Gang finds themselves back in it, they immediately lose a fight in order all in onto that Fire Giant. Yes, they do steal it, as you said, but trading out that Phoenix, although not the worst Phoenix to lose, is still a Phoenix lost. Gold Fury is also available for the lane surfers to move towards. The buffs are available for them to steal. There are 2 towers left on the map that they can take away from Optimus Gang as well. Now that the Optimus Gang is fully spawned, I expect we will see them try and push down that solo lane to keep that fire wave out. Instead, they move towards this Gold Fury.
Spanify. I don't know about all this, King. All by himself up towards the front, but Aragon jumps in right in time to take that apple for him. Alka looking for a target, and that target will be the objective, but the rest of the team might not be on that same page. Everyone is still trying to help Freuzen on this front side. Mr. Stefan on the receiving end of that Divine Retribution. Gold Fury goes down, but look at Atori surge past the entirety of his team and look for a little bit more. Curve is going to get chopped down. Gaspanify finds Dinosaur. Optimus Gang, really just Atori, I should say, keeps that fight alive and well for the Chaos side. Good use of the Purification Beads, and that's that 1v1 potential for the Nemesis. Easily able to take down even the ADC.
With that Deathbringer online, that crit, that burst damage that he brought, it's so hard for the ADC to trade in, especially that he didn't itemize Hard's crit himself. If they want to take this Phoenix, they better take it fast. Minions are flooding into their base.
They do just that. They get the left side Phoenix, returning the favor to the lane surfers, backdooring a side lane Phoenix, but I think Optimus Gang will be much happier with which Phoenix they got, as they get the Phoenix furthest away from the Fire Giant. Aragon's a little bit in an awkward spot here. Freuzen can chase him for a while. With the blink, that might actually kill Aragon in this spot. Alka joining up will, as I said, eventually kill him. Okay, they got him, but get the Thor ultimate, a little bit of time. I mean, Fire Giant's not up for such a long period of time, though, that it really won't end up mattering too much. Either that Aragon dies or that Alka's ult is on cooldown.
I would have liked to see Itori maybe move in there. Camazotz was alone for a long time. Even the presence of Nem might have been enough to stop that aggression, as Gaspanify takes a ton of damage.
Shibalanke ultimate used, as is his Aegis. Lane Surfers taking advantage, actually, of that Athena dying. I thought it wouldn't matter too much, but joke's on me. Aragon's death opens the door for a tier 2 tower on the left side to go down, but Freuzen has gone too far, and he gets executed by that fatal strike. Sibby finds his second kill. An Optimus Gang, another punish, but a couple ultimates on cooldown. They're going to try and keep this going because Aragon, remember, can rejoin very easily with that Defender of Olympus. A great wall from Alka actually pinned Sibby and everyone else in place. Spear of the Nine Winds lands on a 2, but not enough damage to kill them. Alka ends up dying because of an auto attack from Caspanify that hit him very late, it felt like. Dinosaur has to try and keep everyone alive, and all of a sudden, this might be game, Mifflin. There are a lot of towers up, though. This Titan is going to be tanky, but Optimus Gang are going to go for it. Aragon here in the Titan room. Is Itori going to try and get some damage off, but Dinosaur is trying to handle the Nemesis. Titan down to about 50%. Curve standing tall, but he's going to get cut down, and Optimus Gang take care of the Lane Surfers 2-0 in a game that was very, very close. They win despite having lower kills in Game 2.
Optimus Gang won purely off the back of that last Spirit of the Nine Winds, finding target onto 3 people. I mean, that's absolutely insane, opening up the game for them to move in very easily towards that Titan. 3 towers up, 2 Phoenixes. We don't care. 3 of you are dead. It's late game. 5 of us jump onto your Titan. It's going to die, and it does. Optimus Gang running away with a set 2-0.
Man, a game that, again, you feel like the Lane Surfers should have had a better chance to try and close out. That one, a far bigger lead than they had in game number 1, but our conversation really came to pass in my mind. When the whole lead is on Dinosaur and Curve, that puts a lot of pressure on them to carry the game, and I think the good dedication by Optimus Gang to make sure that that wasn't the case. They put focus on them, but the Fire Giant pull going wrong, Caspanify getting a triple, that set him up to have a really, really good late game.
Caspanify got truly carried by that triple kill that he facilitated himself, so I wouldn't even call it carried. That was a bit of a misspeak from me. Caspanify turns that game around right there, finds himself level 20, but you have to remember, immediately after that fight, Caspanify loses his life along with 3 other members of his team, just off the back of another engagement. So even that lead there wasn't truly what shifted the game. This game was so back and forth the entire time. I think we can only really attribute the actual match to the very end when they find those picks. I mean, either way, that game could have gone any way, considering Kukulkan doesn't find 3 with the ultimate.
And Freuzen as well, getting caught out on the back harpies, just zoning far too far away from the rest of his team. He gets killed, and that kind of opens the door for the eventual chase. I thought Ferrokrick had another really good game. You mentioned his huge ultimate at the end, but he was under siege basically from minute 1, and it was able to do a lot of very good things that game. I don't know what stole that, if that was an auto attack from Sibi or something, but that Fire Giant went down in their favor, and Tori did the late game Nem stuff that you expect. Easily able to kill Curve here on this chase. I mean, Optimus Gang kind of just took care of business, but I don't think that I came away from this feeling like they were the vastly better team over the Lane Surfers, despite the 2-0.
Yeah, if this were to happen again next week with this exact same matchup, it could be 1-2 favored Optimus Gang, it could be 2-0 favored Lane Surfers. These guys are just about as evenly matched as they can come. I would expect we see them maybe play a little bit more disciplined again, maybe shift their focus as well, the Lane Surfers that is, towards a more early game comp, because that seems to be when they really flourish. Might as well lean into your strengths, guys, and pick around it.
Well, that does it for the SMITE Open Circuit today, but I've got great news for you SMITE fans. SPL begins tomorrow. Thank goodness, it's been too long without SMITE Pro League level play, and you'll find that tomorrow right here on these channels, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. We will have the SMITE Challenger Circuit before that, starting at 1 p.m., so make sure you tune in nice and early. I know we'll be doing a lot of content. You'll see player interviews tomorrow with all the SPL teams that are playing, so make sure you're here bright and early tomorrow, starting just before 1 o'clock to see the SMITE Challenger Circuit. And then the SPL Season 7 finally begins. Thanks so much for watching today, the SMITE Open Circuit. For Mifflin, myself, everyone in production who works very hard to put this whole thing on. Make sure you're washing your hands, staying safe, and we'll see you tomorrow for SPL. Peach it.